We basically charge like $100,000 a day to advertise in 1440 today. I think we got to like 10 million in revenue with like 5 people.
So this is Tim Huelskamp, and Tim runs a newsletter, like an email newsletter called 1440. It's one of the biggest and the most profitable newsletters in the world. It has over 4 million readers. How did you get those first sponsors? Just the 10K a month? That's probably the hardest thing to do.
If you actually go back and look at our first ad, the click-through rate on that versus our current ads, we've lifted it like 300%.
Tim is a master hire, so he's built this incredibly small team of killer operators. It's one of the many reasons why they do over $1 million per employee per year.
It is the best thing to do for your bottom line. If you can acquire wonderful talent and then keep them, it is the single best thing you can do for your bottom line. And people treat humans like trash. Do I want to be building a company anything like that? No.
In this episode, Tim is going to teach us about why the path to making millions of dollars a year is not about fancy marketing tactics. It is about obsessing over your product.
If you delight your customer every day and you like pour love into the product, that gets opened.
How to understand the math behind product market fit so you know when to scale.
Every user is worth like 70 cents a month to us. We retain about half of them in the long term, a little more than that. If we're acquiring a subscriber for $2 or $3, we're making it back in like 3 or 4 months. And then after that, it's just all gravy.
And the 3 things that you need if you want to build a successful startup. If I was starting a newsletter today, right? Like what are my first like 7 years gonna look like? Like trials, tribulations, wins, that stuff.
All startups are, in my opinion, are 3 things.
I appreciate you doing this like little podcast thing. I feel like most people probably know, but you run a newsletter called 1440, and it does like $21 million a year, 20 employees, which already already like amazing, like pretty cool. And then the other thing is any like big media company like I talk to, so like Red Ventures or like Dotdash or like CNN. Anytime you guys, I don't know if you know this, anytime you come up, people know you guys and they want to know everything. And it's I don't know long term what you're trying to do with the business, like if you're trying to sell it or what the thing is, but I feel like you're like the newsletter darling right now. Do you feel like the newsletter darling?
Not one bit, actually. Yeah. I feel like one of the things in hindsight, if I could do it all over again, I think our team was so focused on like building like a profitable, durable company and like delighting the user every day. I don't think we did an incredible job at like getting the word out and building awareness and doing podcasts and like being on the scene. So I think we're doing a much better job now and people do know who we are. But yeah, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have invested in that a little bit sooner and spent more time on it. But appreciate you saying that very much. And also just like wonderful to be here riffing with you and can't wait to spitball on our industry here.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. I was thinking about how I wanted to start this. And I think one thing that is pretty cool is I kind of knew this about you. I think we first met at like a conference like a year ago or something like that. And I knew 1440 super well. What I didn't know is you came from like private equity, which I did not. I know a lot of private equity people, and like, and I mean this in a good way. You're not kind of like that. It's like a bear on a bicycle situation. Like you're like super nice. You're super funny. Like I think we were. I think the first time we met, we like traded numbers, and we were at some conference thing, and like somebody, and no shame to them, but they were like, somebody was like being super wordy on stage, like a lot of like consulting talk, and like we're texting each other and we're like, oh man, holy buzzwords, and like 1440 just turned 1450 during this talk, and like we're just kind of joshing around having fun. And I was like, man, I know a ton of people aren't like that. So like how does like private equity guy start gigantic newsletter like that? That's crazy to me.
Yeah. So I mean, I think so I was in private equity for about 10 years. I did investment banking out of college for 2 years. IPOs, M&A for like software and internet businesses in the technology sector. And then, I worked over in, I had basically 2 jobs in private equity. So the first one, it was both in the same fund. It was called American Capital. So like a $20 billion publicly traded private equity fund. And we had I joined our tech team. So we were doing like late stage venture. So like series D, E, F rounds, early stage buyouts in software and internet companies. So think like VRBO, we actually like helped put that together. It was actually a really cool thesis from like Austin Ventures where they're like, this is a fragmented industry and there's all these little providers. We just roll up the whole space. So we provided debt and equity to help them do that as an example. And then
was that a home run? I mean, Verbo's pretty big now, right?
Austin Ventures made, I forget how, $1 billion or something like, or hundreds of millions, like huge, huge return the fund there. which was a really, really nice win. And then also, so I did that for like 3 or 4 years. It was more like, where's the puck going, kind of venture, like later stage, but venture stuff. And that's really cool, like awesome background. But then basically, like, it's a long story, but our company kind of like put, I think, like 5 billion to work and like at all-time highs in like 07, 08, 09. So then we kind of like shifted and basically became, they like went from 200 employees to 600 employees back to 200. So I shifted teams and I worked on our operations kind of workout team. And I'm rambling a little bit here, but it was awesome because like that was a totally different experience because we would actually go into the companies and fix them. So basically, like, you would have a company that like was broken, and we would go in and we had the kind of the SWAT team. My boss was the head of the group, and then we had like experts, like a marketing expert and a operations expert, and we would go in and like run a playbook. They'd do 10 million in EBITDA, and it's like, how do we get that to 30 or 40 million in EBITDA? And like bring a new CEO in, professionalize the business. We would go in and meet like the VP of sales, and we would say like, what type of CRM system do you use? And they're like, what's a CRM system? So like they didn't have processes in place. So, two very different experiences, but one was more like, forward thinking, and one's more like, how do you make the business 1% better like every week? And I was just like very grateful to have seen both sides of that, because I think like it prepared me. I didn't know it at the time. I think it prepared me to be a first-time CEO pretty well, right? Because I got to see like all this stuff, and like I would get dropped into the companies that weren't doing well, and we have to figure out like an action plan on how to fix them. And one of the most important things I learned, to make my last point here, is I saw a lot of bad CEOs, right? And then we would bring in our awesome CEOs in, and like I'd watch these companies get fixed. And the biggest thing I learned, I promise I'm not just saying this, was people are like all that matters, right? So basically, like we talk about this all the time. Like I want to be hanging out with you because I think you're brilliant. I love how the way you think about the world. And like generally speaking, you just got to be around really smart people. So we would have these companies with 300 employees, a dictatorial CEO that didn't want to hear from anyone. All of his lieutenants would be like pretty bad, like just not that smart. And then people like had all these awesome ideas and wanted to help the company, but they like felt afraid to even raise their hand and talk about it. And then we'd come back 6 months later after dropping our CEO, and it's like this like utopia is probably a stretch, but it was so crazy. You'd come back in, and the same 300 employees with like 4 or 5 new people at the top would be like all rowing in the same direction and like positive and thinking about how they could attack the market. And so, yeah, I think like for me, it was like, it was just like an awesome learning experience in private equity. And I was like trying to use a lot of those strategies like here at 1440 as well.
Yeah, I dig that. There's and so that group that would have KKR has like Capstone, like they're just
exactly. Very
like that. Okay, yeah.
Yep,
all right, that's helpful. Yeah, I have some friends who do that. I love that stuff. So okay, so it was private equity, but actually it was more like the later stage growthy stuff. So almost maybe a little bit more like venture, and then the second half was like, all right, you're actually doing the operating stuff. Like you're going in, you're fixing the company, you're doing the doing.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
That's cool. Okay. How do you make the leap? Like because I know folks who have those kind of jobs. You get paid a lot of money to, you kind of get some gold handcuffs. Like, I don't know if you were a principal or something like that. I don't know what it was back then, but like, I know plenty of principals who make, 400, 500K a year. And then I don't know how it is in the ops groups, but like you get some carry. So you get a percentage in the fund, and like how well the fund does. And so like it ends up being like a really cushy job. Like it's really, really hard to leave and go do anything else. Like, did you go through that?
Yeah, totally. So the way I thought about that was, okay, so we had like 20 billion under management. I think it was, we were publicly traded, and Ares Capital, which is like a larger private equity firm, actually bought American Capital in 2017, I think it was. And at the time, so up until that moment, I'd always been like really entrepreneurial, and, I was I had a CD burning business in high school, and I sold Coke not
we can cut anything you want, Tim. Anything you want. We can. That was also the tagline for your business. Is that
right? Yeah, sold pop. I didn't want to say pop because that's like the Midwest term, but
I'm from Ohio. We did pop. That was our thing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we sold pop or soda or Coke, Coca-Cola, whatever you call it, on my parents' driveway when I was like 8 years old. So I've always been like really entrepreneurial. So basically, I'd been in private equity for 10 years. We get bought by Ares. They basically come to our team and they're like, hey guys, we're trying to figure out what this looks like in the long term. Some people are going to stay, some people aren't. It's probably not going to be very pretty for a lot of you, but like a lot of people will have a home here. Like, what are you guys thinking? And it actually gave me an opportunity to think about what I wanted to do. And at the time I was like, you're 32, you've been on a bunch of boards, you've seen how like both the the growth equity VC side works and the private equity turnaround thing works, right? You've like been in the trenches. You want to build a business. That's your dream your whole life. You're entrepreneurial. Like, dude, they're literally giving you an opportunity. They offered to pay me quite a bit of money to like take a package. And I was like, I thought about it for a couple of days. I'm like, this is the universe telling you, like, here's your opportunity to start a company. And if you don't do it, like, the way I thought was like, screw you. Like, if you're not doing that, like, you don't really mean it then. Like, this is like, what a wonderful opportunity. So yeah, I talked with my friends and family and like my boss, who was super supportive too. And he's like, what are you waiting for? Like, take that all day long, like, take the ripcord. So I decided to do that. And then like went off on my own and started the startups basically.
So I think the episode that you were listening to right now could make you $1 million. And I believe that. The reason I believe that is because your content diet, the YouTube videos you watch, the podcast you listen to, is the highest leverage thing that you can do for yourself. I became a millionaire in my early 20s. And frankly, it had very little to do with me. It had everything to do with the fact that you and I live in a crazy lucky time where founders like this hop in these podcasts and they share everything that they know for free. And so that's what I do. I talk to founders who do millions of dollars, and I talk to them about their financials, their funnels, and their feelings, the mindset that got them to where they are. And so if you're building something or you're thinking about building something, I want you to do something for yourself. Forget me, which is I want you to hit the subscribe button on this podcast. I'm going to write down the ideas you're hearing, and I want you to get to work. Back to the pod.
Why start versus buy? Because that's kind of the key thing. You take out a SBA loan, you buy a business. Like I know a ton of PE folks have actually, that's their first thing they go do. Starting is like, it's like the far end of like the risk curve, right? Like why do that? And why media? Like where people like, dude, it was your boss like, hey, I told you to start a company. I didn't mean this,
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I think I just always wanted, I like the idea part of it, like as well. I actually think, when I try to help founders with like new ideas, I think there's an old adage of like, it's, 1% idea, 99% execution, which I don't disagree with. I also think a lot of people have bad ideas that they're executing on. So you have to make sure that you're executing on a good idea. But, to that point, so I actually, 1440, I didn't do it right away after I left private equity. I actually worked on another startup first. It was called When in Rome. And basically what it was is, like, I love to travel, as a lot of people do. But basically the thesis is like, you go to a new city, say you're going to Seattle or whatever, and you've been there once and you went, like, saw the fish being thrown around, but you actually want to like go to a new neighborhood and get some cool sushi and go to some, the hipster part of town or whatever. Like, doing that's pretty hard, especially 10 years or 8 years ago. So basically we had this business called When in Rome. And what we did is we went to the, all the best concierges in the world, like the Four Seasons and the Ritz and all those. And basically they were like Uber drivers, and they were basically on this platform, and we could basically, you could text, and they would build you a custom itinerary. We had like 100 of them or something like that. I spent about 9 months on this project. And what I learned pretty quickly was all startups are, in my opinion, are three things. It's the search for product market fit. Once you have that, the next challenge is basically, can you have repeatable, scalable, profitable growth, like i.e. positive unit economics? And if you have those two, then you can scale the business. So basically, I spent a lot of time building this product. It was great. I got to learn how like work with engineers and actually like find product market fit. But then what we quickly learned was we ran into a buzzsaw on unit economics. So basically, like, we would charge $30 for one of these itineraries. We would split it with a concierge, and then we had to pay all the Stripe fees. So we would make like $12 an itinerary. And if you think about the lifetime value of those customers, the average person's probably going on one trip a year. If it's like a salesperson, maybe they're doing a few more, but very low frequency in terms of like the lifetime value. So you have to acquire those customers for like very low. And what we learned quickly was, you type in things to do in Seattle and Google, and like the cost per click there is like very high because Hertz wants the customer, Marriott wants the customer, all these people want these customers. And like basically we were spending like $200 to acquire a customer. So what I learned there, the blessing in disguise was, and what's crazy, like if you think about in hindsight, all the companies we were funding at American Capital already had 50 million in revenue. They'd figured out their unit economics. We were just pouring gas on the fire. I didn't really appreciate how hard it is to build like the unit economics and find that scalable, profitable growth. And basically we took the idea and went down every rabbit hole. There's like 25 ways to acquire customers, like word of mouth, referral, PPC, Facebook, white labeling, all these different things. And like none of them worked, literally. So we went down every one and none of them worked. So I was like, this isn't working. I need to move on from this. But that's actually how I spent my first about 9 months was on that idea. But then when I was looking at that idea and looking around the ecosystem, Hustle was around, Skim was around, Morning Brew was around. It was right about the time. I don't think Axios had started yet, or if they had, we didn't know them. But I was looking at this industry, and
were you looking at a bunch of industries? Like, were you just kind of like tamming out a bunch of stuff?
Yeah, I was just kind of looking around, like, I was like angel investing in some things and spending time. I was working on like 4 or 5 different projects, and then the newsletter industry kept on coming up, and I was like I remember watching a video of, I think it was Sam Parr from the Hustle talking about like the unit economics of the Hustle. And this is probably when they had 200,000 subscribers or something, 100,000. It was like, wow, if you can find white space and delight the customer, these business models are very lovely. And like at the time, and maybe it wasn't, unicorn or decacorn or venture scale, but you can build like a really wonderful business in newsletters. And I think I saw that and was like studying it more. And then I was running the math. I'm like, yeah, like, I mean, you make a nickel a day and you start doing the math over time. And if the audience is big enough, you can turn this into like a really wonderful business. So I think I had that in mind, and I was studying the newsletter space. And then Drew, my co-founder, brilliant scientist from DC. He's a buddy, an internet buddy, but now an IRL buddy, but originally an internet buddy. So we both had this pain point, which was basically like, we wanted to know what was going on in the world. We felt like media, it's true. Like media by design is very niche and verticalized. So you have like sports and culture and technology and politics. And we're intellectually curious people. We're busy professionals. We want to learn a bunch of stuff. Who's playing up here, right? Who's like the inch deep, mile wide provider in a world of the opposite? And then the other thing that we were like kind of frustrated with was just all the like left versus right and opinions and bias and all this stuff that gets in the way of the knowledge. And we're like, can someone build us why isn't there a comprehensive, fact-focused newsletter that just gives you everything in one place? Not like everything, but most everything in one place, right? And we couldn't find it. And we just said, like, let's go build that. But before we built it, like we thought through, like we had the evidence, because I just got burned by When in Rome with like these unit economics don't work, where I was like, in this industry, they really work. And then we thought about the TAM and we're like, where can we win? And it's like, wow, that TAM up there, right? The top and serving everyone is very, very large. And if we can go play successfully in that, that thing can get very big. So like we went into it knowing that like, I think that's the thing I learned was, and I actually try to help founders with this all the time, because I think I had the same exercise, but I think they only think about product market fit. And then a lot of companies, they go into the second round and they're like, oh my God, you can't win here. Like you literally can't make money. Peter Thiel always talks about this. It's something like 70% of companies have like one acquisition channel that they grow by, and they just do it really well over and over again. So it's not like you get like a lot of them. So I think like a lot of companies, actually, I try to teach people that like when they're on the startup journey, I'm like, okay, so if you get past product market fit, is there a scalable model there? And I tell the story of When in Rome, because I'm like, you could spend a year of your life figuring that out. So is there a way to like step back and be like, if I get product market fit, is there a viable model here? And I would go study that first. So I try to teach people like start there. And then if it looks good, then go on the product market fit journey, but don't like walk into a buzzsaw basically.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so there's like 10 things in there I want to like unpack. Number one, 100%. So one, I think it's very good that you, I think spending 9 months on something that doesn't work is awesome. I think a big mistake that people make, I've made this, is spending like too long on things that don't work. Because actually the most valuable thing is actually your time, and like knowing when to quit and when to try something else is this really, really important thing. So I remember, and at least making an act decision about that. So I helped build this company called Apex, and we were running around acquiring mobile apps. And I knew that business wouldn't work maybe 4 or 5 months in. There was like our very first buy, which is before I got there. I ran our portfolio for that company. I was like, we overpaid for it. But the bigger issue was that we were like raising money from VCs to go do private equity. So actually it was like a cap table mismatch. It was like, well, the VC doesn't care. If you have an app that's like a 20% IRR, you should be 100x or you should be zero. And, in either of those cases, I don't have to be on this call, was like the thought. But I just got handed like $15 million of revenue to, just go run around with. And so I stayed for a full year because I was like, what? And it was kind of like you were saying, you had engineers, all this stuff, just playing and getting to play with all these different channels and looking at unit economics. Because as a consultant, and to a lesser extent, like the operating stuff you were doing in the venture kind of PE world, but certainly as a consultant, which I was, you don't do that stuff, and like that was so important. And I had two other ideas after that I won't get into, but I spent like 3 to 4 months on those before this agency, and I quickly validated not to do those things. I think that's quite important. That's like one thing. Yep. The other thing I was hearing, so the unit economics piece. Okay, so you heard some stuff from Sam. You're trying this. It's like, the first couple months, like what about the unit economics were exciting to you? Like what was the math that you guys were doing that people should be doing? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the beautiful thing about this business model is basically if, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs building the space do not focus enough on this. Actually, not only just on the customer reader side, but also on the revenue side. That's a whole nother part of it. But, if you delight your customer every day and you like pour love into the product, that gets opens, right? So like we have a 65% open rate at 1440. It's always been north of 60%. Even like when we had 78 friends and family, it's been like the same since 78 to 4.5 million. And basically like we think like that's basically like the value to society ratio, like how much value you're providing. So if you do that every day, people like your product, and then generally speaking, they continue to open it. Now there's spam filters. You can say like, they can think you're left or right, or they didn't like how you covered Trump and they can unsubscribe, like that whole thing. But basically, like if they like your product, they're going to keep opening it. And if that happens, you can build wonderful unit economics. So some numbers here. So ballpark, we basically charge it's about $100,000 a day to advertise in 1440 today. Our first ad was, I think, $180. It was like Harry's Razors, or there was like the Tasting Collective or something like that back in the day. But it was those kind of direct e-commerce companies. Today it's $100,000. And basically like, if you break it down, we basically make like 5 cents ish every time someone opens an email. So basically like, we send 25 emails a month with a 65% open rate. They're open up like 15 a month times 5 cents. So every user is worth like 70 cents a month to us. And like, so of the retained users, we retain about half of them in the long term, a little more than that. So basically every user, like they're retaining, if we're acquiring a subscriber for $2 or $3, we're making it back in like 3 or 4 months. And then after that, it's just all gravy, right? But like, again, I think a lot of people, they look at this space and they're like, oh, this is scaling, it's easy. And then they don't put the love into the product. And then they have a, 20% open rate, and people open 4 emails and they should make 20 cents, but they're not good at the revenue side because they're not actually delivering for the reader. So like they're not clicking on anything anyway. So they make like 2 cents and they acquired they spent $2 to acquire something worth 2 cents, and then game over, right? So the whole model here is basically like delighting the customer, building a wonderful product, and then you just make nickels or 3 cents or 4 cents, or, if you're in B2B, you make more than that because you have these really targeted audiences, but you're making like nickels or dimes for a long time, but then it adds up and then you get huge returns on your initial cost per acquisition. So yeah, that's like how we think about it. The unit economic stuff is really interesting. So yeah, okay, $100,000 a cent. You guys have, I think 4.5 million. So yeah, something like 60 cents like that, something like that. So yeah, if you're paying like, I'm just following this through so I know. So, okay, so in case people don't know, like newsletters all sell like attention, right? So like you've got it's called CPM, right? 1,000 people like see the newsletter. You might charge 20, 30, 40, maybe $50+ if you're in B2B for that. And so like, that's the number of stuff we're talking about. That's how you get down to like this like nickel, a cent kind of thing. So you're saying, okay, 60 cents a month per reader, which by the way, that's super high in consumer, which means your performance must be like killer. Like a lot of B2B is making like 40 to 60 cents a month, almost no B2C. So that's like one, like, aha, I want to talk about that. Cause my guess is your sponsor performance like must like kill. So I want to dig into that. So you break even on a reader if you pay like $2 or $3 a reader in like 4 months, 5 months. And then you said the long-term retention rate, which is another thing people don't measure in this industry, which I think is a problem. People don't measure retention. Yep. I know so many people who do millions of dollars a year who they don't even actually know the LTV of their user. But like, you say long-term retention rate is 50%. What does long-term mean? Like you get 100 people in, 50% of them churn by the end of year one, and then pretty much everybody stays after that, or?
Yeah, so it's actually like most people are gone in the first 3 months. So if you look at our retention curves, you can see the story, and it's something like we get 100 emails, 10 to 15 never open, or it's a bad email, or it's, there's like some stuff you got to work through there. But then so you might have 85 right away out of the 100. Then in the first month, it goes down to 70 or something like that, because people are like, this is not for me, right? Can't win all the customers. But basically, so after 3 months, you get to like the mid 50s, and then of the 100. And then going forward, there's like a little degradation. So it's like, 55.2 to 55.0 to 50.
Yeah.
It's like 0.2.
Like you could draw a line with a pencil after that and be pretty accurate.
Exactly. There's like, right. So and like some of that is like, people leaving their jobs, and then spam filters, and like, which we think about all the time.
But that's the important thing. You don't need to wait a year to know what a year of value is going to look like. You kind of know 90 to 120 days in, which to your thing is like the, like you don't want to waste too much time. You want to validate unit economics, right? What's the least amount of information you can have to actually make a full decision on like what you might be doing with your life for like, 7 or I guess you guys are about to turn 8 years.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
No, that's a really good way to put it. And think about, so like even when we had 10,000 subscribers, which was probably, it took us, like we were doing hand-to-hand combat, like, swaps and like with other size newsletters just to get it to get to 1,000 and then 1,500 and just keep growing. But when we even had 10,000 subscribers, you could see, we didn't even have the revenue yet, but you could see the retention in it, right? So it's like, wow, like even our cohorts, like there's that similar story and people are enjoying the product. So then I basically looked around the industry and was like, okay, Sam is making 5 cents or 4 cents, whatever it was. It's like you start thinking like, all right, if we do about the same as them, this business is very good and we're golden. But like you can't do that without the retention. That's the whole thing, right? Because like if you're making pennies or nickels a day, you need people like to open it every day. That's like the way to think about it. So and like there's so much like a competition for people's attention that like you have to deliver a world-class product. And I think a lot of people in this space, they come in, they're like, oh, this is really easy to win here and like easy to be an entrepreneur. And then they don't put the love into the product and they don't get the retention. And then similarly, you touched on this a little bit earlier, you got to deliver for the revenue side too. Like we think about it all the time. And like we're constantly split testing our ads to see like how many links should be in there. What do the colors look like? Do you do like conversational language versus David Ogilvy type language? You got to deliver. Like if you actually go back and look at our first ad and then like the click-through rate on that versus our current ads, we've lifted it like 300%, right? So it's basically like we've lifted our revenues like 3x just from that work. And like, we love our partners and they're wonderful, but like if we don't deliver for them, they're just going to give all their money to Zuckerberg. It's so easy to do that. Like we're all doing that too. It's like you can see it. So like you have to provide for them. And I think a lot of the founders, like not only do they not provide the love for the user, but they don't even think about the revenue side of it. And then there's like, oh, just someone will pay me for this. So it's like, no, you got to like fight for them every day. Right. And without that, like they're not showing up, So
yeah. So I know a lot about you guys now. I don't know the early years. So can we do like, can we go year by year? I know your first send was to like 78 people, right? It was friends and family, and just go year by year, like only what you know. I know your sub numbers. I pull them on way back. I'm actually curious if you can guess, but like subscribers, revenue, and then like highlights, lowlights. Like basically, I want to go like if I was starting a newsletter today, right? Like what are my first like 7 years gonna look like? Like trials, tribulations, wins, that stuff. Are you down to do that?
Yeah, totally. This will be a trip down memory lane. Absolutely. I love it.
All right, let's do it. All right, May 2017, 78 people. Tell me about that first send.
Yeah, so we had the thesis that we were kicking around about this, the 1-2 punch of comprehensive and impartial and just delivering it, doing it. So Drew, my co-founder, super smart guy, PhD scientist, worked on Capitol Hill, the coolest thing he ever did was we were talking about this, and he's not even from the startup world. And he's like, let's just build it and send it out tomorrow. And it was so it was so awesome. I was like, yes. Like I feel like we could have like overthought it. And he's like, no, let's just like write it up and ship it out tomorrow. And then we did that. And it was like really helpful to get like our momentum going and our speed. So I think, that week I like emailed some people. So the 78 friends and family, it's literally like my groomsmen, my uncles, my aunts, my bro, like it's like our closest friends and family. And we basically just said, we have this thesis for this, this thing. We're going to send you an email this week. We'd love for you to check it out. We didn't want like them to overthink it and like know what we were doing. We just wanted them to like give us honest feedback. So yeah, we sent that out in May of 2017. And then the first 2 quarters, maybe 3, it was just literally iterating on the thing. So if you, hold on, let me pull it up. I have it. I actually pulled, like, this was like the thesis email here. If you look at it.
This is great.
The guiding principle. So I think I'd forwarded this later, but people want to be in the know across all categories of knowledge, but it's tough to keep up given information overload. There's too much garbage to sort through. Specialization of industry topic newsletters leads to inch wide, mile deep instead of the opposite. There's a difference between reading the news and being in the know. News doesn't cover interesting topics like cultural happenings, products and companies, social theories, parenting tips, etc., i.e. our etc. section at the bottom. Folks want to consume tiny bits of knowledge and then dive in if it's interesting and relevant to them. They don't want editorializing. Folks from all walks of life should want to consume because it's aggregating all sorts of knowledge. When we discuss a topic, we link to explanation of key terms. So like this was kind of like the thesis of it. And then, yeah, this was our original one. So
I like it.
This is basically like, if you look at it, it's pretty similar to what we have today. So if you like compare it side to side, right? So we had the top 3 stories of the day. They were 1 line back then. Today, like we got a bunch of feedback and said like people want more. So now they're 200 words or 150 words, I think it is, right? Because people want a little bit more color there. That was some feedback we got early on. And then
what like, as you guys were testing, so like one choice I see you guys have made, which like pretty much I've never seen anyone do this. There's no photos, for instance, like which is like if you go look at like if we pulled up Morning Brew Axios, right, or the rundown, you're gonna see photos. Was that part of like what were the big decisions? Because you guys rip spot, and part of that's the trust with the audience. I'm sure 100 other things, but your sponsor performance is just crazy, and I'm trying to reverse engineer that.
Yeah,
basically.
No, so basically, early on, we didn't have photos. And then we basically started putting them into the newsletter. So like is this it here? Like that was like Louis Armstrong's birthday or something like that. So we did have photos in. And then what we heard when we had like 150 people, like really small, right? Like on our 9th send, we heard the photos actually get in the way of the knowledge. So like I'm trying to like understand what happened today and learn a bunch of things. And like when I read other newsletters, and for some of them it's wonderful, but for our audience, they're like the photos are actually getting in the way of what we do best, which is put knowledge efficiently in your brain. So we're like so it's not like we didn't do it. It's not like we were lazy. We put them in, and then people didn't like them and asked them to remove them, so we took them out. So basically, if you think about our job to be done, like we think about that, and we love that term here. It's like our job is not like we're not like a Nat Geo or whatever that's like all about pictures. We're like, we put knowledge efficiently into your brain as possible, and actually photos get in the way of that. So that's why we've removed them.
Got it. Okay. All right.
So yeah, so like our where was it? Yeah, so it's like, here's technology, and then there's the top 3, and then we did technology and science. Today that's science and technology. Down here, science and technology section, right? So we moved it around a little bit, and then there was travel, culture, and lifestyle. That's our sports, entertainment, and culture section. And then business and finance, politics and world affairs. Those didn't change. Entertainment, we brought up into sports, entertainment, and culture. And then down here we had military and defense. That's interesting. So people didn't want that. And then this day in history, and that was it. So, we've since added all the fun stuff you see, like in our et cetera section down here, right? Like gladiators fighting lions and AI reduction in clicks and all this awesome stuff. And then we added in a quote in the history book. But generally speaking, it's like all the same kind of content in here, right? Like so this was that was it. That was the first one.
Yeah, it's like 80-ish, probably 85% the same 8 years later. You had the product right from the get-go. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Drew and I were just like, we're frustrated consumers. We can't find it. If we were to build this thing, what would it look like? And we just built it. And then we took the feedback, and then now it looks like it does today.
Yeah, I love it. Do you know, okay, so you did that first send, and then your first year, do you remember how many subscribers you had a year later? I'll do this. I'll see if you can guess. We'll do a little reveal.
We have all the data. Oh my gosh, this is so unfair. January 2019. So we raised right after that. So we probably had like 50, 60,000 in January 2019. And then we turned the flywheel on. Okay, 50,000, right. Nice. Then we
why did you raise? And what did you raise? Like, what can you say about that? Like, why raise in the first place? Because I think a lot of media businesses should not raise money. I think you guys did it in a slightly different way. That's pretty good.
Yeah, totally. So before I answer this, I would say like what I've learned, like, coming from the venture private equity world is not all companies should be capitalized the same way. And like there's different forms of capital for different companies. So I think one of the faults a lot of founders today make is they just assume like, oh, well, OpenAI raised equity and, Twitter and all these companies like doing it, like that's what we should do. And it's just not always the case. So the way that we thought about it was, how do we keep control of the company? And then also basically we went out to the venture community, and what they told us was, you got your unit economics figured out. We had 50,000 sends, right? So we were doing like 10,000 in revenue or something at the time. You could see the unit economics working. You could see the retention of the long tail from the folks for 18 months. And they basically like, you have a really cool story. Your co-founder is awesome, but like, I just don't see this getting that big. Like, we need to be unicorn hunting. Like, that's what venture capital guys do. Like, they're looking for unicorns. It's like, I just don't see this becoming a unicorn, and I need a unicorn. So I'm not going to fund this. So we heard that early on. And then if you think about it, like, we're kind of like a private equity business. But to your earlier point, like, they're not in the business. They need to write $50 million checks or $10 million checks. And this is like venture risk. So we were kind of in no man's land where like we didn't know, like there was no real capital provider for us. So we actually ran into this organization out in San Francisco, and I can never remember it, but they it's such a cool model. So basically what it was is they did the equivalent of Mr. Wonderful's royalty-based financings that you hear about on Shark Tank, very similar to that. And they basically said, there's all these companies that could do like, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of revenue, but they're not unicorns and no one's financing them. Let's think of a creative way to do that. So they basically did this. We raised $500,000, and then you basically, starting a year later, you paid back 5% of your revenues until they got 3x on their money, and they got a small equity kicker. So I thought there was a really cool model because, like, one, it allows you to control your own destiny. It's like debt, but not really, because it's like based on your revenue. And then as you get bigger, for the investor, like, they either get whatever, millions of dollars or something 10 years from now, or a donut. But this allows them to get their money back sooner, which helps their IRR. So it's like a really smart structure. And then, so anyway, we applied to that, didn't get it, but I love the structure. I actually took it to my old private equity bosses, and I was like, look at this. It looks really interesting. And they're like, that is interesting. We'll fund that. That's like a short version of the story. So they provided, my two like kind of mentor private equity bosses provided that initial $500,000 to let the flywheel spin.
Got it. Okay. That's super helpful. And you guys raised when you were doing 10K a month, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly.
How did you get those first sponsors? Because that just the 10K a month, I mean, that's probably the hardest thing to do, making one of these newsletter businesses.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, so our audience is pretty special too. I think that's one thing that people don't totally understand is like, not only do we have a 65% open rate and like really incredible engagement, but it's an awesome audience, right? It's a lot of like a third of them have a graduate degree, a lot of doctors, bankers, lawyers, engineers, people with money. And then similarly, like they like to be healthy, wealthy, and wise too, as we like to say. So they love learning about new finance products, new better for you wellness products. So yeah, like they have money to spend too. I think that's one of the things, like our audience is a little older. It's not like 20-year-olds. We have 20-year-olds. We also have like, 40, 50, 60-year-olds as well with money. So they like to do it. So I think like early on, we saw those two things. They liked those products and they were willing to spend money on them. CPM. So again,
Well,
going back to my point,
did it come inbound from the audience? Were you like
No.
slinging
Sorry.
cold
Yeah,
emails like Sam was?
Yeah, we were reaching out to everyone and basically said like, hey, we see you in the hustle. We see you in Morning Brew. We have a similar audience that's a little different. Do you want to give us a shot? So, and I think, back then we were doing CPC, CPA, anything, a lot of CPA deals just to get in the door. But then the benefit was like we proved it out and then they would continue to run us. And as we got bigger, some of those customers have turned into our long-term customers.
How big did you have to be before you could move from these, like, because no newsletter like wants to do the CPC, like cost per click, cost per, acquisition deals, but they're a great place to start. And now like Beehive, a bunch of platforms, like you can just plug in and do that, right? You don't have to do those initial cold emails. But moving out of those, I think, is what everyone would want to do eventually. That part's tough. Were you guys like 100K, 150K? Like when were you going CPM?
Did you do probably like when we were a couple hundred, 250, 300,000, something like that. And even then it was still a blend of CPA, CPC and CPM.
Do you remember how big you guys were? Oh, I keep doing that. Jan 2020.
Yeah, I saw that, but I was going to say 250. So basically it took us 4 years to get to 1 million. And then our half-life to the next million keeps going up. So yeah, so it's what 50. So we had 50K. There we go. Yeah, that looks about right. And then 1 million was the next year. Yep.
Yeah.
And then 2, like maybe like 2.1, 3.2, something like that.
Yeah, you got it. 2+ and then 3.1. Yeah, and then you guys are 3.8. Now you're like 4.5.
Nice.
Okay.
That was cool. That was like a nice little trip down the memory lane. I appreciate that, Nathan. Like, in the whole thing, like, so like the 50K sends, right? Like we shortly thereafter raised the 500. And then again, like going back to like, I think we were getting subs for like $1.50. So we acquired 300,000 new subs, 50% of them retain. That's how you get from 50 to 200, right? And then take that money and just keep going. And then by the time we were in January, we're at 500. We actually did another round after the 500K. It's actually kind of a cool story. So my mentor investor that did the deal, we actually wanted to do another debt round. And like, we actually went out to like a family office network and got like this really good round. It was $1 million. It was like, you paid it back in 3 years. It was very friendly. You got to be careful with debt. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to walk them through it. You have to be very careful with it. But when you use it as a tool, it can be very effective for keeping, all your ownership in the company. So it was a really cool story. So basically, anyway, we go through the financing. I get this term sheet and we're negotiating with the board. We go back and forth. We're about to sign it and we're on the board meeting. And Gordon, who's my investor, and he was like the second in command of American Capital. He's like an awesome financier. So he looks at it and he goes, Tim, before you sign that, I have one question for you. I was like, what's up? He's like, what if I do that deal, the exact same terms, just change the name at the bottom? And I was like, I have one question for you, Gordon. I'm like, where do I sign? So, trying to keep it in the family. Like, he believed in us early on. And also it just like keeps it easier from a capital perspective to have folks not only you trust, but like less parties involved as well. And I also wanted to reward him for that as well. So yeah, he did our next round. And then after that, we did some some credit card stuff with there's this company called Pipe down in Miami that allowed you to borrow against your future revenues. There was actually a competitor of theirs that we used for like 2 years where we basically got to spend $200,000 more than we were making as long as we paid it back with like a 6% interest rate. So we did some very creative financing solutions. And if I could ever be helpful to folks in like explaining those, but yeah, basically all it was is like, when you know that you can make back, you can put $1 in, you make it back in 6 months. You want to do as much of that as you can. And one of the reasons, like, we kept the business like so lean and mean, we basically had like 4 people on the team. I think we got to, I should look this number up, but I think we got to like 10 million in revenue with like 5 people because we wanted to keep the thing so lean and just spin and spin and spin. And we tried not to complicate it by design. Like, we want to focus on things. And we just like said, like, just keep going, because as the thing compounds, you want to just like let the flywheel spin and spin and spin.
So I think the episode that you were listening to right now could make you $1 million, and I believe that. The reason I believe that is because your content diet, the YouTube videos you watch, the podcasts you listen to, is the highest leverage thing that you can do for yourself. I became a millionaire in my early 20s, and frankly, it had very little to do with me. It had everything to do with the fact that you and I live in a crazy lucky time where founders like this hop in these podcasts and they share everything that they know for free. And so that's what I do. I talk to founders who do millions of dollars and I talk to them about their financials, their funnels, and their feelings, the mindset that got them to where they are. And so if you're building something or you're thinking about building something, I want you to do something for yourself. Forget me, which is I want you to hit the subscribe button on this podcast. I'm going to write down the ideas you're hearing, and I want you to get to work. Back to the pod.
Was it like perfect the whole way through? Like
No,
what sucked? Like what didn't work?
Oh, what's getting punched in the face every day by something? Spam filters. Oh man, it's like
did you ever have like an oh shit day? Like I remember this was ages ago now, but like somebody, like there was an ESP email sending provider, and like they just went offline. I think we did a project for MailChimp back when I was at BCG, and I think they had like an outage day early in the company. Yeah. And it was like a huge stressful thing, fixable, but like extremely stressful that day. And it's like, oh man, I don't know. Like what were those moments for you?
Yeah, we had MailChimp go out on us, or I think or we got like suspended for some reason. I forget why. We didn't deserve it either, because we're like, we keep the cleanest list, and if someone doesn't want to be on it, we remove them. We proactively take them off because that's very important for delivery. But like early on when we had, I don't know, 20,000 subscribers or something, like all of a sudden MailChimp was just like blocked us out. And I think if I recall, we got it fixed like that day. Like we ended up shipping it the next morning anyway, but like for 10 hours we were out of business. And that was the day where it was like, we got to get off of MailChimp because like, this is not okay. Like it's like a risk to the business. So yeah, spam filters or keep us awake at night because like they're very black boxy. So like we now work with all these like incredible partners that help us like with inbox deliverability. We didn't have that until we got up to like maybe 1 million subscribers, but even still like we're constantly looking at it. I would say like the feedback too. So like if you reply to any 1440 email, they still come to my inbox, and like just, I don't want to say getting punched in the face, but I already said that, so I'm going to keep going. But just like people just, I think a lot of times, especially in like the comments section, they don't realize there's someone on the other side of it. So they'll write in like really mean stuff. And it used to get to my head, but I think it's actually been really good because some of it's just crazy. But even if someone's mean, like there's feedback in there. But one of the things I'm trying to do is, and at some point I'll have to give this up, but hopefully I don't ever, is I'm trying to keep my editorial team, like they don't need to hear that stuff, right? Like the good feedback that's like helpful. Like for instance, one of our readers 4 years ago wrote in, we wrote like an unmanned spacecraft, and she was like, it's uncrewed. I'm like, she's totally right. And now we use uncrewed going forward, right? So there's like great feedback in there. The bad stuff, we want to make sure that we're not like, that's not getting in like the rat poison is getting in their brains. So like, I feel like it's like my job to make sure that they don't see that. But yeah, people write like mean stuff all the time, even still today, just like how we cover things. And like, we're trying to do the whole fact first thing. So we get hit from the left and the right, like all the time, especially when there's like big, like political things in the day. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but we had the co-founder situation with Pierre, which was like a huge tragedy for our company. And it's going to take like an hour to talk through that. But that was just such a terrible event, just on a personal level and like for our company as well. And just how to interact with people. Now that I've got into it, Pierre was one of our co-founders. He led revenue for us, brilliant young guy. And he was running a marathon in Arizona, and he died afterwards, like literally finished the marathon and then died. And he like built our company. His DNA is all over our business. And just like, just like that was as low as it gets. And then just like I just remember it happened. I remember getting the call on Sunday, and I couldn't, I was just like, what? Wait, what? It still doesn't make any sense to me. He's like the healthiest person I've ever met in my life. Runner, vegan, awesome guy, brilliant. And then, but then also it's like, okay, so what do I do? Like, like I'm a first-time CEO and my co-founder just passed away. Like, we have a team, we have customers. Like he had most of the relationship with our customers at that point. And it was just like, yeah, that was like growing up really quick as a CEO. And I think like, he was like, what do you do? His family, his friends that I know, like it's just, oh man, that was a rough one. So I think that was definitely like the low, but by huge order of magnitude. And then also just like all the little things that make it tough, right? But also I think like when you constantly get punched in the face, it also makes you like really strong as a team, and you can like feel like you can like tackle almost anything. And like we've tried to keep the business really lean and mean so that we can like react quickly to things. And like one of the things the metaphor I use all the time is, we kept this company very profitable or very, very lean so it can be profitable so that we can reinvest. We also want to do it so like the word layoff is like not in our vocabulary. We don't do layoffs here. Like we only hire people if we think they can be with us for like decades, because we're trying to build this business for the next couple decades. And we have this term called, I'm rambling, I'm almost done, Nathan, I promise. We have this term called EBITDA, which is basically like if you take the variable growth that we reinvest back into the business and you essentially add that back or take it out, like what's your EBITDA margin? And ours is like 75% or something like that. So we would never do that. But if we turned off growth completely, we would have like a 75% profit margin. So like that's really awesome, because what it also means is like now we're our own investors. Like our customers are our investors. Sorry, our revenue is our investors, and it keeps the flywheel spinning, and that allows us to control our destiny. It also means like if something bad happens, like we can take a pretty big hit. Like I think about it as a ship out on the ocean. We could take like some cannonballs and we'll be fine. Where a lot of companies in media, I mean, you've seen this all over our space, right? Like if they miss revenues a quarter, they have to lay off 50 people, or like, there's softness in the economy, 100 people are gone, right? Like we don't have to worry about that here. Like one, because we only have 22 people, but second, it's like we can take a hit, but because we're so profitable, like we have that protection.
Yeah, there's just going back to a couple of things you were saying. One, I think one of the reasons why you guys are really breaking out, I mean, you've been successful for a long time, but like just the religious focus on the customer. You have such a there's such a kindness about you with the team, and it really, I mean, everyone on the team on your I've met a lot of people on your team. Everyone is so helpful, and it's like, what can we do together? And that's such that culture thing. I'm trying to think more about culture now for the feed, and like it's so hard to craft that, but it's really difficult to replicate. Like I was gonna ask you, like, could somebody build another 1440? Maybe somebody can do a similar niche and be successful, right? But that culture thing is so tough. And the other thing I was thinking about is I remember, I mean, Tyler lost his co-founder, and like I different scenario. I lost my mom when I was quite young, and I just I remember there's been a couple pieces of writing that have made me like tear up and cry before. One of them was Tyler writing about in his newsletter, kind of that loss. And one of the things I learned from that is how much it makes you think about what's important. And I didn't have kind of my losses in a team environment, but when you have that in a team environment and really together as a group, from hearing Tyler's experience, gets you into like, all right, this is us. Like we're in here together. Like this is reaffirmed that this is important. Like the mission we're on is the mission that we want to be on. Yeah. Like let's fucking do this thing. Yeah. And I can feel that, I think, in the people in your business. And I just have such a good time with you and Eric and everybody. I think it's incredible.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. It's like literally the most important thing I think about every morning is like, how do we acquire and retain the best talent in the world? And like, yeah, to your point, like that culture is like, and we got to get better every day, and we're working on it, but like, yeah, like it compounds on top of itself. And then you bring in like 22 really smart people, and like that compounds on top of itself as well. So yeah, like we're constantly thinking like, I mean, I say this all the time, like I know that headhunters are coming after every employee at 1440. And like, I literally try to think like, how do I make it so when Erica, our VP of growth, who could go so many places, like when she gets those messages, she laughs. Right. And like I'm not trying to be mean, but like, she's like,
no, it's true. Erica's not going anywhere. She's so happy. I mean, it's cool. Like you could just see, she's so, I do calls every month. And like,
please, Erica, I'm telling you. Yeah, I hope she stay. I mean, but also like, but that's on me though. I think a lot of founders don't really, so it's not her fault that she's talented and can go a lot of places. It's my job to create an environment where she wants to stay. So like I can find talent. I think I'm very good at that, but I also have to create an environment where they want to stay and like thrive. So like that means creating a place where like they have autonomy to do like what the great work that they're capable of. You pay them well above market. They share in the upside with equity. There's like a fun environment. Like you said, like obviously work's not always fun, but like we want to have like a uplifting fun. Like people die, like people, like literally we've learned this, people die. Like, so we want to make sure it's like we're having some fun along the way too. Like we're building like a cool company and like we want to like be having fun. And how do you give people the best benefits in the world as well? Something we really focus on. Like we've just started doing, actually it's been like a year now. It was Erica was our first person. Like we did body scans, right? So like we do preventative body scans and like we pay for you and your significant other to, it's like $2,500 at Prenuvo company, which is great. And like they look for like aneurysms and cancer in your body. Like, it's like, cause I mean, we care. Like I hate when startups use the term family, with all due respect to the folks that do that, because they're not your family. But like we like to use the term like froligs. It's like your friends that are colleagues. Like I care about everyone on my team. And like, I don't want, I want them to have fun and I want them to want to be here too. But I also like want to take care of them. And then the thing I think is missed too by a lot of founders or like CEOs is some people look at this and they're like, oh, that's like hippie stuff. Oh, they're trying to be nice to their, first of all, not only is it the right thing to do, it is the best thing to do for your bottom line. If you can acquire wonderful talent and then keep them, it is the single best thing you can do for your bottom line. And people treat, a lot of people, especially in media, and it really pisses me off and I'm getting a little worked up about it. They treat like humans like trash. Like they don't care about their weekends. They don't care about their development. They look at them as like a cog in a machine. It's like, how can I get as much juice? And like, that's not like, do I want to be building a company, anything like that? No. So yeah, I think the talent thing and the benefits is like such a huge differentiator. And then also like we've lost one employee, not Pierre, but one employee in 3 years, I think it is. And it was a good mutual departure. Like when you have continuity and people like you can acquire talent, like it's literally the most important thing. It's said earlier with the private equity things I learned, like it's like hiring smart people is the most important thing you can do, and like generally get out of their way and like let them do their thing. So yeah, it's how do you build that culture, right? I think it's like something that's so important.
I think part of it is so that I've noticed a lot of like really amazing founders and companies where their mentality, and I try to do this as best I can, is like I'm going to find absolute killers and I want them to do amazing while they're here and really push. But my goal is like, hey, I want them to leave and one day and go do like, hopefully not soon, but like far, and do incredible things, start their own company. Like I think, Walter, I don't know if you know Walter all from Milk Road, and like Sean Purry.
Yep.
He's a good buddy of mine, but like, Walter's got a really successful agency now, and he put in so much work with Sean, but it worked. And like Sean attracts those kinds of people to him. And like, I have a buddy, this guy, I don't know him super, super well, but through another friend of mine, this guy, Oliver Mercado, who had a big DTC company that I think probably did, $9 or $10 million when he was in his early 20s. And he had this other business called Study Buddy. And the COO of that business now is the co-founder of Cal AI, which is the giant app that's everywhere, that's doing like $2 million a month in revenue. Like these people find these, I could call them killers in like a good way. And you support them and they give their all. And then they go do these, like your Padawan, and then they become the master. They do something you had no idea they were going to go do. And I chase that feeling. We have one or two people on my team who I know they're going to go start like a DTC brand or a newsletter, or they're going to go kill it. And I'm like half terrified because I don't want them to leave, but I'm like half like, oh man, I can't wait. I can't wait to just be able to say like, look at this person. Like I'm so like, proud of them. I don't know what the right word is, but proud, whatever.
Yeah, no, I love it. I couldn't agree more. I always tell people like, I want like, if you ever leave, I want to teach. We try to teach everyone like business principles as well. Like everyone's involved in like all the strategy we're doing at the company. Because I want even like our writers to be understanding like sales and product and like be learning, because we're a knowledge company, right? So I tell people like, not joking, like if you ever do that, like let me be like one of your investors eventually. But also the way I think about it is like, I want to be creating an environment where I can attract those people, but they might want to go build something, but they're like, wait a minute, what I'm building here, my share of will be bigger than what the thing I would go build is, right? So like, I think I want to stay here. So that's like our topics thing we're working on, like that. It's like we're trying to go for it with like this Pinterest, Reddit, Wikipedia thing. Like that we have like a vision for it. And like, I think a lot of people like you got to do that too. Like Sony, our editor in chief, she's brilliant. She's been with us for 4 years now. Like people like also want to, they love doing the product, but they want to be working on something bigger too. And like, that's part of it as well, is like making sure that we're not just like being content with like, we're going to be, it's a great business that we've built, but like, how do we think bigger too? And then like keep folks along for that ride.
So you guys launched Topics, and you tell me if this is right or wrong, but the way I see Topics, and I think of it more from like the business model side, like that's what I get excited about, is like you have this giant newsletter company where you're sending hundreds of thousands of clicks anywhere you want, on the internet, really, right, every single day.
Yep.
And so kind of if you go look at like Morning Brew or Industry Dive or some of these other newsletters, what they did super well to go from, 10 million, 20 million to where they are now. One of the things they did is you've got the parent newsletter, and then you have these children newsletters that go deeper, and you acquire a customer or reader once, and they get on multiple newsletters, and you can sell multiple times, and it just becomes this huge flywheel. And to me, like Topics is almost like you're using a newsletter to go bootstrap this web-based business that also has these weekly newsletters and then these verticals.
Yep.
And you can monetize the weekly newsletter. You got, we can cut this out if you can't say it, but I saw on the business and tech one, you got Fisher, right, as a big anchor partner.
Yep.
That's now on those evergreen articles. And to me, that's just like, that's how you go from 20 million to 50 million. Like that's the big swing. Is that a good understanding of Topics?
Yes, with there's another layer.
You can say no.
No, that's a perfect. So I would say it's actually okay. So the way that most people do it is they, as you said, they have the core newsletter that does most of their revenue, and then they start like getting like neat, like tangential niche, basically. Like I said, we have this, and then we do these similar people, and like everyone does it differently. And all these operators you said are wonderful, and we like look up to them deeply. So with us though, it's actually like, okay, so because we serve this big audience, the inch deep, mile wide audience, and we have like a really large TAM, we're actually thinking about, instead of going down, we're going up. So Bezos always talks about this. Don't be in the messy middle, either go like niche down or scale up. So we're actually trying to go up a level, but what you said is like the mechanism to get there. So it's like how we're paying for it. So like our ultimate vision is basically like, people hear things like the gut microbiome and CRISPR and inflation and Burning Man and all these things. They want to learn about them. It sucks on the internet. You go on Google and it's like all this stuff gets in your way. You go on social media, you don't know what's real. Like people just want to learn. It's the same thing I said at the beginning. They just want to put knowledge efficiently in their brains. So we're trying to build this ecosystem where like anytime you want to learn about a topic, we've curated all the best resources and provided the best place on the internet, not to do Q&A like AI, but like I want to learn about inflation. And like, I don't want to type in a question and get an answer. I want someone to like guide me through this learning experience and find all these awesome resources for me and explain it to me and let me know like what I should be thinking about that I don't even know I should be thinking about. Like we think that's like the holy grail for us. But the way we're getting there is like, you can't just go from, we think there's like 10,000 topics we would have one day, colleges, dog breeds, cities, all these different things, but you can't just go from like 0 to 10,000 overnight. So we're using the newsletter strategy, like the topics, the business and finance one was our first. So we have like 200 and something thousand people already on that one. So we're doing that to seed it with content and then also revenue that pays for the development of it as we work up to build the 10,000 topics. So we're not sure exactly what it looks like, but what we're trying to do one day is like have these 10,000 topics, and we think there'll be something like 30 to 40, who knows. We have 3 writers right now that do business and finance, science and technology, and sports, entertainment, and culture. But we think those will get even more like fractured. So there'll be like a space one and food and travel and, universities or whatever, like you're studying these things. And they're almost like equity research analysts covering the space and finding all the best content. But again, we're trying to go up, but we're using the business and finance newsletter to build out the content, sponsor it with the revenue, and then use that capital. It's another flywheel, right? So like it's very profitable. And then we take that revenue and now we can fund 3 or 4 writers. And then you just keep doubling down. And then eventually we got to do a lot of work, of course, and a lot of things got to go right. But eventually it's like 2 to 3 years from now, you have almost like pretty good coverage of all these topics. Cause like there's power laws in internet search, just like there are in venture capital, where basically it's something like the top 10,000 topics on the internet are like 20 to 25% of search. So people are looking for like, Chicago versus some like little, like the suburb I grew up in, no one cares about that place, right? So we're not going to cover like the little suburbs, but like we're going to cover the Chicagos and the Austins and the big cities. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it. But what you tell me, does that make sense, or what, are we thinking about it wrong, or what?
There's one thing I also really like about you is you have a very clear vision, but you're always you're very curious, right? You're like, but what do you think, right? And I think that's a good. I try to I'm trying to maintain that too.
Strong convictions, loosely held, is what the Andreessen Horowitz guys call that.
I love that. I like that a lot. I mean, the way I think about it is like, I used to be a consultant, and I was obsessed with the Point Sky. I go there every day, and I had a little model built out of like, all right, there's my BCG back when I was there. First year, you make you make like 100K, maybe 110K or something, but you make like 30 or 40K in points. It's actually this giant surplus to your compensation as like a first year. So it's always there. And we work with TPG actually now, which is cool. But that business, and this is all public and stuff, it's under Red Ventures, right? Which is they do billions of dollars in revenue. Yep. TPG in and of itself is a 9-figure business, right? And it's super trusted. Like I go there directly. Those people know what they're talking about. Like they're experts in that thing. And so it sounds like you're basically like, can we have 100 of those? Like on 1440, kind of, right? And that's how I think about it.
Yeah. And like that's the thing. Like we'll see, but one of our things is like we've been so disciplined to date to like we have that one product that we worked on, and we like basically said no to a lot of things, especially like back when it was unpopular to do that. We're like, we don't want to be launching newsletters that only have like a $500,000 revenue upside. That's just like, don't spend your time on that. If we're going to work on a new product, let's like swing for the fences and go big. And that's what we're trying to do here. So we're like, we're trying to build like a Pinterest, Reddit, Wikipedia thingy, like where it's like literally like the go-to place on the internet. Eventually, like there'll be like UGC. UGC is a poor term because we want to make sure everything's fact-checked and human like curated by us in our community. But eventually there'll be upvoting, and you can like suggest to add things to different topics. So like we'll get our readers to be helping with that. But it's more like the problem, UGC is wonderful, like Reddit and a lot of these programs. But the problem is you get all the weird stuff. So we're trying to keep all the weird stuff out, but then get the good parts, the benefits of UGC, and put those into the ecosystem. So again, it's like a little bit of Wikipedia, a little bit of Reddit, but then it's like human curated. And at the end of the day, it's like what we do well. We curate knowledge. We help you learn efficiently. We help you learn things you didn't even like in your wildest imagination wouldn't even know. That's why people come to read our newsletter, right? They know like, oh, I'll learn about what's going on in the Middle East and the latest company IPOing, but also learn like fall foliage schedules and Michelin stars and something else I have no idea. And that's the part, like, because we serve intellectually curious people, they love that they don't know what they're going to learn, but they're going to learn something. And like, we think that's like a really, really big market.
Yeah. I love it, dude. How big do you think this business can get?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think if we do things the right way, it'll all fall into place. So we're just trying to do like, one day at a time, deliver for the customer, and like that'll all work itself out. But, because we're not venture backed and we don't have like someone yelling at us to sell the company tomorrow, like we can be really patient and like let that play out.
Yeah. I love it, dude. Well, I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, it's super fun. Can we do this every Friday, Nate?
Yeah. You might regret that. I think I've noticed how much you're flying around. I don't know if you can commit to that, but I'll be here.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. I had a bunch of fun and love riffing with you and exploring our space.
Yeah, man. Boom. That's the pod.